What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another Dark Matter guide. In today's episode, I'm going to be covering how to unlock all of the camos for the shotguns in Black Ops 3. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so first up, I just wanted to cover some general shotgun tips that are going to help you just play better overall with shotguns, and then we'll definitely get into the more specific camo challenges for these shotguns. So first off, one of the most important things to understand while playing with a shotgun is how to navigate the map properly. So what is proper map navigation for shotguns? Well, that basically means you're not running out into a big wide open lane where you could have a sniper or somebody with an assault rifle or LMG sitting at so far of a distance that there's no way that you can close that distance between you and him before he kills you. Because you gotta keep in mind, you have those limitations on your shotguns. You can't be shooting people across the map. You have to get up close. And in order to do that, you have to find the areas of the map and use the areas of the map that are more close quarters. This doesn't mean you can never touch those longer lanes. You just have to be a lot more cautious with them and make sure you have a lot of team support and make sure your team has control of that lane before using that longer lane. So on evac, for instance, you typically want to be pushing more inside the building area towards the middle of the map. You can kind of also push a little towards the B flag, but then you have to keep in mind that a lot of times there's those people that sit on top of the B flag building and they can cut off that longer line of sight looking both directions, and it can be very difficult to close that distance with a shotgun properly. So it's not an area you want to push into all alone with no team support, because if there's a guy up there, you have no chance of surviving that situation. You want to maximize the odds and stay in those areas where you have the advantage, or at least where your shotgun is usable. Another thing with this is knowing the limitations of the shotgun that's in your hand. So for me, for instance, I know exactly where my Argus will get a one-shot kill and where it will no longer start shooting enemies. And this is just based on feel. I just know in-game, yes, I can just barely hit this guy, he's just in my range, or no, I can't hit this guy, so I'm not going to challenge him. Same thing goes for the KRM. You have to know that, yes, this is going to be a one-shot kill, or this might end up being a two-shot kill, and if it's a two-shot kill, I'm in big trouble or something like that. You have to know the limitations of the gun that's in your hand. And finally, for playing with shotguns, don't be afraid to have a little bit of patience. I know a lot of people, when they first pick up a shotgun, they think all you do with a shotgun is sprint non-stop constantly and try and get into the enemy's face. And while that might work sometimes against enemies that aren't that great, it's usually a good idea to use patience to your advantage in certain situations. Yes, you want to be aggressive, yes, you want to typically take the fight to your enemy, but if your enemies are in an area where there's a long line of sight and they're running straight towards you and you're inside a building or something, of course you shouldn't run out and try and challenge them where they have the advantage. Let them come to you where you have the advantage. There's no shame in waiting for an enemy to come close to you when you have a shotgun. It can actually be a very good tactic. A lot of the times you can turn your back to an enemy, like if you see an enemy at a distance, you can turn around and run away and pretend that you're running away from them, and a lot of the times the guys will just start sprinting straight after you and they'll come straight for you into your trap. You can just turn around, wait for them. As soon as they come into your line of sight, they're dead instantly because you have that shotgun. So having patience is very important with a shotgun. I'm not telling you to just sit in corners all the time with it. I'm just saying, if you know someone's coming to you, let them come into your trap. A couple more specific gameplay related tips for shotguns is, first off, the slide shot. If you find yourself face to face with an enemy and maybe he's just outside that range where you feel comfortable getting a one-shot kill, or you just want to close that distance a little bit faster, use the slide to your advantage. This will close that distance a whole lot faster, and it'll make you a harder target for him to shoot, and the closer you get, the better with shotguns typically. The Argus might be a slight exception to this. You typically want to keep people more at a mid sort of range, but in either case, that slide shot can be very, very effective for closing that distance and getting that kill. And finally, something that most people know, but there's still a lot of people that don't know, with the shotguns, if you aim down sight, it actually tightens up your pellet spread a little bit, which means that you're going to get more consistent one-shot kills with the KRM, I find, especially with the Argus. The Argus is a big exception where when you hip fire, you do have a decent pellet spread, but when you aim down sight, it fires almost like a slug. Your pellet spread is so tight that it's basically like a slug, and it will one-shot kill almost 100% of the time if you hit while aiming down sight. As for the Breccian Haymaker, most of the time I find aiming down sight with them isn't really worth it. Some people might disagree with me. I usually just hip fire with these, but definitely for the Argus and the KRM, when you notice your enemies are just at that sort of threshold where you're not too sure if it's going to be a one-shot kill, aim down sight to maximize the odds of hitting all of your pellets, or at least more of your pellets. Because if you hip fire, you have a wider hip fire spread, and therefore you have a much higher likelihood of missing some pellets. So what I like to do, specifically with the KRM, is if they're at a little bit of a distance, I always aim down sight before I fire. If they're up close though, I'll always hip fire, just to maximize my odds of getting that hit, because I'm getting that great spread. And if they're right up close, it doesn't really matter if my pellets are spread out a bunch, and I'm more likely to get that kill. With the Argus, I would say always aim down sight unless you're basically point blank and you are just 100% confident that you're perfectly on with your hip fire. So those are the basic shotgun tips I'll share with you before we get into these camos. Just like with the sniper rifles, a lot of this just comes down to playing around with things and just experiencing it. Because a lot of people, I would say the average player, doesn't really branch out into shotguns too often. And therefore they're kind of stuck in their own ways with playing with SMGs and assault rifles and LMGs, for instance. And they're just not used to that shotgun playstyle. So stick with it, get some experience under your belt, and it will become a whole lot easier as you go. So now let's finally get into the camo challenges. So the shotguns are different than the other classes in that for the first 100 kills, half of them require headshots and the other half require one-shot kills. So the Argus and the KRM, they both just require one-hit kills. So for this, there's really not much to tell you. Just play around with these shotguns, use this time for these 100 kills to really get a good feel for the shotguns, because the challenges that are coming up after the 100 kills, they do become quite a bit more difficult, so you definitely want to have some experience under your belt. So just use this time to mess around with them and focus on improving. As for the Breccian Haymaker, this is where I get the most questions. People wondering, how do I get more headshots with these guns? I struggle so much with them. And once I found the right technique, I was getting headshots with these things like crazy. I think I got like 27 headshots in a game with the Haymaker once I figured out this technique. And this technique is pretty simple. Use a laser sight and always hip fire while aiming just slightly above the enemy's head. Just slightly above. If you aim right for the enemy's head, a lot of the times it'll be like a 50-50. You might get a headshot, but you also might get a body shot. By aiming slightly high, I just found I was getting those headshots more like 70% of the time rather than 50% of the time. There still will be lots of times where it's a body shot when you were clearly aiming up towards the head, but it really just depends on which pellet hits last to cause that kill. If that pellet hits the body, it won't be a headshot. If it hits the head, it will be a headshot. Simple as that. Another thing you can do to maximize your odds is you can jump shot. If you jump shot while hip firing and aiming towards where their head is, you'll get above them, which also increases your odds of getting that hit. Plus, it makes you a harder target to hit, so that's an added bonus as well. Another thing I found is this is where the Nuketown playlist really comes in handy. With the Nuketown playlist, with these two guns, you can pretty much dominate in a lot of different areas, especially in objective game modes. So this is where I got most of my headshots for these two shotguns. You can do it on other maps, just keep in mind Nuketown is nice because you know you can always use a shotgun effectively on Nuketown, whereas there's certain maps like Infection, for instance, that can be very difficult to use a shotgun on effectively. As for core game modes versus hardcore game modes for this, I've seen it go both ways. Hardcore can be good with these two shotguns for headshots because it's always going to be that one-shot kill. So you just aim high, you fire your shot, it's either a headshot or it isn't. The only issue with this is with shotguns, it's all about map navigation. And if you're not an expert at map navigation, it's very easy to get picked off by any other gun in the game at a distance. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely a trade-off to consider. So with these tips, if you just stick with it, the headshots will come over time and you'll eventually be able to get these done. Once you complete the 100 headshots or 100 one-shot kills, then you unlock the final 5 challenges. The first of these 5 challenges is the Ardent Challenge, and this one requires you to get 10 revenge kill medals, which means you just have to kill the person that killed you last. You have to do that 10 times, This one usually just comes as you complete the other camo challenges, so I wouldn't even put any of your mental energy towards this. It just happens on its own. Next, we have the burnt camo, which requires you to get 50 kills with that gun with no attachments equipped. And this one's actually pretty easy with the shotguns. I find attachments on shotguns in this game don't really add too much to the shotguns themselves, so you're not really going to be missing too many of the attachments, I find. Well, working towards this is always a great opportunity to start going for your bloodthirsties or your chameleon camo, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And you'll also be working towards your ardent camo, as well as your battle camo, which we'll talk about in a second as well. The next one is pretty much the reverse of this. You have to get 50 kills with 5 attachments and an optic equipped, meaning you can't have any perks. And I find that I definitely do miss perks more than attachments when I'm using shotguns. I would much rather have perks than attachments. But again, it's just something you have to kind of suck up and do. It's not that difficult. It's just a kill. So you might not be playing at the top of your game, but you're still getting kills with it, which contributes to this challenge. And again, this is something where you can definitely continue working towards those revenge kill medals, as well as your rapid kill medals, which is for the battle camo. And you can also try to get your bloodthirsties as well. So next up, we have our battle camo, which is 2 rapid kills 5 times, with both kills coming from that shotgun. This one with shotguns usually isn't that difficult, especially if you're playing objective game modes. Play something like Safeguard or something, where enemies tend to group up together, and these double kills usually come pretty quickly. I mean, with the Argus and the KRM, it might be slightly more difficult, but it's still just not that hard to get these most of the time, as long as you're playing game modes where you get enemies that tend to group up. And finally, we have the Chameleon Challenge. And this is where a lot of people get hung up, especially with the shotguns and sniper rifles. And with this challenge, you have to get 5 kills without dying 5 times, with all of those 5 kills coming from the gun. Keep in mind, like I've said in previous episodes, you can get like 3 kills with your shotgun, pick up another gun for a bit, like using it as your secondary, get a bunch of kills with that other gun, and then swap back to your shotgun. And you still only need to finish off 2 more kills with your shotgun to complete that 5 kills. So it's 5 kills in one life. The bloodthirsty medal itself is irrelevant. And really, this just goes back to those basics that I was mentioning at the beginning of the video. Navigate the map properly. Don't be running out into the open where you're going to get picked off from a distance. Have patience with your enemy. This is very, very important, is have that patience. A lot of people get far too rush happy when they have a shotgun in their hands, and they run out into the open far too often, and they try and challenge things that they can't comfortably challenge, and it gets them killed. If you start getting on to like a 3 or 4 streak, there's no shame in just hanging out within a building and just kind of moving around and waiting for an enemy to eventually come to you. It will work out in your favor eventually, just have some patience. A little bonus tip here is you can use the rejack ability to keep this streak going. So if you go on a 3-gun streak with your shotgun, you get downed and you rejack successfully and survive, you still only need to get 2 more kills when you get up to count towards this Chameleon Challenge. So rejack can definitely help. Just keep in mind with shotguns, a lot of times you're close quarters when you die, so when you rejack, it's usually a pretty hectic situation and it's really difficult to survive a lot of times. But then again, you have a shotgun, so it's just something that might give you that little leg up every now and then for this challenge. So once you complete all of those 5 challenges, you'll get gold for that gun. Once you get gold for all of the shotguns, that will give you diamond for all of the shotguns. And again, once you get diamond for every gun in the game, you'll get dark matter. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.